Hey, I'm Srini, the creator of Maximize Your Output with Mem. Have you ever felt overwhelmed by the sheer amount of information you need to organize? What if I told you there's a way to streamline it all, like a second brain that works for you, not against you? In this video, I'm going to show you how to use Mem's collections feature to help you build your second brain effortlessly. Imagine never having to dig through endless folders again. Collections are like dynamic, digital, intelligent folders, making it easier to access and use your information when you need it most. And if you want to do a deeper dive into how to build a second brain in Mem, check out our free video series at maximizeyouroutput.com/second brain, where we'll guide you through building your second brain in MEM step by step. Now, let's get to the tutorial. What I want to go over in this video is how you can use collections in Mem to build your second brain. And the cool thing about collections in Mem is they're like dynamic folders, but they have more flexibility than folders because they allow you to group related mems and they make it effortless to move and find information whenever you need it. So unlike traditional folders, their focus is on being able to put your information to use rather than organizing that information. Now, if you're familiar with the concept of building a second brain, you've probably heard of the PARA method. And in MEM, PARA, which stands for Projects, Areas, Resources, and Archives, becomes more of a mindset than a strict necessity because you don't need to create specific PARA collections or folders for all four categories. So in any typical organizational system, you might have separate folders for things like resources. Within that, you'd have subfolders for book notes, podcast notes, and more. But in MEM, you can streamline all of this by placing all the book notes under a single collection, all the podcast notes under a single collection. So you don't have to create this structure of subfolders, which becomes increasingly difficult to maintain as it gets bigger, but also makes it really hard to find things. Anybody who's ever tried to search through their Google Drive or Dropbox has probably experienced this. The cool thing about MEM is information is organized like it is in your brain. So let's get into creating our first collection. Instead of creating a series of collections for projects, areas, and resources, we're going to create a collection specifically for a project. So in this case, we're going to create this project collection for moving. We're going to go ahead and call this the moving project collection. And the way to create collections is you go here and create the collection. You can even give it a description name. Now we have this project example moving collection. Let's go back to our demonstration outline here. And you can see here that I put together a few sort of pre-written mems. So I'm going to cut this, and then we're going to make this our moving checklist mem. And what we can do is automatically add this to the collection for moving. It becomes part of the moving project collection. So now we're going to do the same thing and create one more. And we're going to make this one our new apartment research mem. And again, we're just going to add it to our same collection for moving projects. One of the things I like about being able to use collections in MEM is that no matter how complex a project gets, you can add any file related to that project to the collection, and you can always go straight to the collection and find it. If we go back to our moving project example, you can see here that we have these two. So moving, as most of you know who've ever moved, is a giant pain, but you might end up having things like stuff to sell. This is something I recently experienced when I had to move. And by creating a collection, you streamline the entire process. You can find everything related to moving in that specific collection. This makes managing all of your information easy. So rather than having to create a bunch of different folders and subfolders for every project and then files within those folders, every note related to a specific project often goes into a collection. So you can see here, I actually have this video outlines collection, and this actually has outlines for a number of videos I've done. So anytime you want to do something, or if I click on this videos collection, you'll see here that this one actually has tons of them. Many of these are the tutorials that you've seen on the YouTube channel. So if I ever want to look back and see what I've already created in the past, I can just go to that. This makes things a lot easier. So now that we have done a example of a project collection, let's look at how we set up our areas of responsibility. In this case, we're going to create a nutrition planning collection. You don't actually have to go over here and create collections. So let's say that we change this to being a simple text file or text header. Instead of doing this, what we could do is if we do this, you'll see here where if we put our hashtag in front and then put our cursor at the end, it automatically creates that collection. So now we've got our areas example collection. And the thing is, because this video outline is where this is in, this video outline automatically becomes part of the collection. Let's add a few things to our collection for nutrition planning. This is just a list of our weekly meal plan. What I'm going to do is put this over here and add it. One thing you'll start to notice is as you start to add more and more information into MEM, you'll actually get suggestions for creating new collections or even suggestions to add this into existing collections. So We're going to quickly search for our nutrition planning collection, and let's do one more addition to this collection, and then we will have a area set up. And we can do this with any number of areas, and the more complex the areas get, the easier this is to manage. For example, I have hundreds of blog posts, hundreds of video outlines, as I've showed you before, hundreds of different notes related to different projects, and probably well over 1,000 book notes. And if I had to manage this in any other system, it would be a gigantic nightmare, and I would have a very hard time finding anything. But this is what I think makes MEM powerful, because of the fact that the focus is really on your ability to actually use your information and not worry so much about how to organize it. If we click on the collection itself, you can see that we can access our collections from within a MEM. Every MEM that is part of that collection is available right there. It's very easy to navigate between different pieces of information inside your second brain. So you see similar MEMs, which is related to MEMX, another feature of MEM that actually becomes much more useful as you add more and more information. Unlike other systems, one of the things that makes building a second brain in MEM powerful is that it actually becomes more useful as you add more and more information. Whereas if you're using a folder type structure to do this, say Google Drive or Dropbox or any of those things, then the more information you add, the more complex it becomes. You couldn't manage thousands of book notes very effectively in Dropbox. But here, this actually becomes much more powerful as you add more. Any idea you have related to nutrition planning can go into this areas collection. We don't have to create a specific areas collection. You just know it's nutrition planning. It's an area of responsibility. For example, managing your household finances. We don't have to make it unnecessarily complex, which is what a lot of other systems do. So now let's look at one final area, which is setting up resources in MEM. In this case, we're going to create a collection called Video Example Book Notes Collection. Part of the reason I'm not doing a book notes collection itself is because I already have thousands of book notes in here. What I'm going to do over here is I'm going to create a new collection. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our demonstration outline. You'll see here that I have 2 books already, and you can see they already belong to multiple collections. So for example, when I was writing an article, I took everything related to Cal Newport and just put it into one article. The nice thing about that is that you can gather multiple notes. When you're writing an article, you don't have to work linearly. You can create a collection for that article and capture the ideas as they come to you. In this case, we have our book notes collection. What we're going to do is add it to our video example book notes collection. Then we're going to do the same thing again for this book. You can see there's nothing here, which means I need to fill it in. This was when I first started setting up using resources, reference notes, all that stuff. I realized you don't need things to belong to multiple collections, and you can move things around. Unlike a file, which can't be in 2 folders at the same time unless you make a copy of it, an individual MEM can be part of multiple collections simultaneously. So now we've got this video example book notes collection. Let's go back to our collections and look at what's in here. You can see that we have a few others. At a certain point, you will start to get suggestions here for what else you could be adding to the collection. So if we go back to our outline, you'll see how this nutrition example, this note got added to the collection. The big advantage of collections in MEM is that they save you a lot of time and headaches in terms of worrying about how to organize information. Basically, all you have to do is identify whatever a MEM is, associate it with a specific project, and add it to the collection. For example, you can have a project with hundreds of notes, and if you clicked on the collection for that project, you could find everything in a few seconds. And if you click on any note within that, you'll also find all the related notes. You'll see that this is mentioned by different notes and that kind of stuff. Let's recap everything we talked about. First, when it comes to setting up projects, you don't need a specific projects collection. Just name the project, create a collection for it, add everything related to the project to that MEM. Same thing with areas. If you have an area like nutrition planning, household finances, whatever it is, create the collection, and anything related to that specific area, just add it to that MEM. And then whenever you need to find it, click on the collection. It'll always be there. Same thing when we're talking about resources. So this really simplifies the building a second brain process so that you're not focused so much on how to organize, where to put things, how to remember where to save things. You don't have to think about remembering to save things in the right place every time. All you have to do is figure out what piece of information is associated with what area of responsibility, project, or resource. And this makes building a second brain much more seamless. I think that collections are one of those features that once you really understand them, become incredibly powerful. They save you a ton of time. They allow you to work non-linearly, and they allow you to really externalize your thinking regardless of what order it happens in. And as always, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below.